Well, we've finally got the Canadian smoke here, and it's kind of got the look of haze because a lot of the heavier, larger particles have fallen out, leaving the smallest ones, the very lightest ones. And that's pretty similar to haze particles themselves. So we kind of have that same look this evening with that north flow coming into Texas from the high plains. And here's one look at it on the satellite. And you can see all that smoke there coming all the way from Childress down to about Hillsboro, down to Lufkin, and back up into Oklahoma there. And the heaviest concentration from Dallas down to Lufkin. Further south, we've got a few thunderstorms from north of Houston around the Intercontinental Airport area through Temple and back up towards about Snyder. And these are pushing mostly to the south, but they're kicking some outflow boundaries up to the north. There's a couple of them right there, very short-lived outflow. Okay, elsewhere around the country, let's check on the centralized maps. Maybe start with NHC. Pretty quiet this time of year. Surprising this time of year. Typically, we're getting into the peak right around the first week of September, and we've just got nothing to show for it right now. And I'll show you a couple of changes coming up in the model graphics, and I'll save that till later. For the short-term convective weather, pretty active system going through the Four Corners area there. A couple marginal risk areas. And also we've got a slight risk extending from western New York all the way down to western Virginia. And further south, a few thunderstorms in that area. We can take a look at that on the satellite. And of course, it's starting to get dark. We're getting into that time of year where we're going to have to start falling back on infrared data. But if we run this back, yeah, there they are. Looks like a lot of line multi-cells all the way down from the western Virginia area down to Georgia. And we can see a few overshooting tops here and there. And let's go back a little bit further. And you can see how there's this open cell look up in the top left corner. This is all cold air advection. Very strong cold air advection pattern, bringing cooler air, including in the upper levels. And once we start heating that up from the bottom upwards, that gives us a pronounced cold over warm situation, which means we get much more unstable. And we can look at that on the GR level 2 imagery, the radar. And there's our cell up there north of Columbia. Looks like that's around Rock Hill down in Rodman. They've got very slight bow shapes there. So maybe a little bit of strong winds with some of those storms. And we can take a look at a cross-section. Let's go from west to east. And there's our storm right there. Not seeing a whole lot of overhang there. And most of the heavier reflectivities are down in the lowest tilts, which is what we see with non-severe storms. Don't see a whole lot of those higher intensities, reds up in the 20 to 30,000 foot range. So very likely we're just going to see heavy rains and some wind gusts come through, and those will keep pushing to the east. A few other cells further to the southwest in Georgia there. This is getting kind of far away from the radar, but we see some cells going through the northeast Atlanta area all the way up towards Lawrenceville, and a couple of cells further down Interstate 75 there towards the Macon area. Okay, we'll go to the upper levels. Come back to that. And this is what is steering the upper level pattern. Jet stream is still way up to the north here in Canada. But like we saw back on Sunday, it's divided into some fairly large troughs, giving us kind of a split flow pattern. Doesn't show up too well in the color shading, but if we look at the individual plots there, we can see 70 to 100 knot winds there, 60 up in Ohio, 50 in Detroit. So the winds are certainly strong there in the U.S. And that's our southern stream associated with that these troughs down in the south. We've also got the subtropical high, which is parked over New Mexico. So we're going to expect to see hot temperatures in that area, and also a secondary subtropical high over Georgia. So probably some warm temperatures there, and you can see the anticyclonic flow around that high. Also, same thing in Texas and New Mexico there. All right, we'll go down to the lower, let's go down to 700 millibars. Looks like the upper level high still in the same area. Looks like that moves a little bit to the northeast right there around Amarillo. And then the high out over the southeastern U.S. looks like that is offshore. I think it's somewhere out in that area there. So that stacks back up towards, or it stacks down towards the southeast there, and then up to the north. There's our trough, and that's probably an upper level front moving through that area. Maybe something like that right there. So that's some of the cold air coming south. And let's check out 850. And there we see the 850 millibar front there over the northwest Indiana area. 850 front all the way down to the DFW area. And where would we place that warm front? Let's see, 18 here, 17 in Virginia, 17 at, yeah, there's a lot of warm air stacked up ahead of this frontal system. So I think we're going to have to go way up to Michigan and New York to find that warm front. So there it is up at 850. That's that system up at 5,000 feet, moving from southwest to northeast. So this gives us an idea where we're going to expect to find the fronts in the lower levels. And of course, we also find reflections of the highs. See, there's a big 850 ridge right there. And we're likely going to see that associated with a surface high. Now these systems, they do tend to stack up into the west or up into the north. So the upper level ridges are going to be found here. The lower level ridges and highs are going to be found here. So what that means is when we find the ridge up there in North Dakota and Ontario, we're going to expect to find the surface high somewhere in that area there. So those are some features to look for on the surface chart. And there it is right there. Our low is up there in Ontario at this hour. And looks like we got a very large high extending all the way down to Iowa and Nebraska right now. Frontal system moving through the Appalachians there, extending all the way down to East Texas and around Temple, pretty close to where we see those showers developing, right in that area there. And yeah, that's about all we got there. We'll just take a quick look at the mesoanalysis. There we can see the north winds coming in across the Red River. And that diverges into North Texas, but one branch of it heads up into the Panhandle like that. So we've got a little bit of an upslope pattern focusing on southwestern Kansas and the Texas Panhandle right up in this area here. And we also see the convergence coming together right in this area here. So there's the wind field. So if we had a little bit more moisture, a little bit more instability, that would be a pretty good chase area right in there. So you've got the wind convergence there helping with initiation, and then normally in this area here you would have the feed of moisture working up towards that convergence area. All right, let's see what's up next. We'll look at the thickness. Still got a lot of cold air up there in northern Canada, but it's kind of locked up in that area for now. A little bit of it coming south into the Great Lakes area in the Midwest. There's that frontal boundary. And this is the baroclinic high coming in behind that cold front. So that's sweeping in like that right there. And then up to the northwest, we've got a new frontal system. So that'll be the next weather maker to watch right there. Taking shape up there in northern British Columbia, up there near Fort Nelson and Telegraph, Lupin, and I think Fort McMurray. Okay. And with that cold air advection, we have seen dry air advection. So precipitable water is way down across the central U.S. and the Midwest. You can see the higher precipitable water there. Earlier, over the weekend and last week, it was kind of stuck in northeast Texas, Arkansas, and the central Mississippi River region. And now it's finally advected eastward onto the east coast there and the southeast U.S. So that'll be on its way out, but almost certainly soon to be replaced with more moisture down in the Caribbean. Once we get southerly flow building back in, we should see that coming up to the north. And we'll look at the GFS precipitable water in just a few minutes. A couple of soundings. We'll look at Fort Worth. Let me see if we got the evening soundings up yet. Man, 22nd at 0Z, it's already getting to the end of the month. Okay, so there's our sounding there for Fort Worth. You can see the appearance of dry air there in the lower levels. Dew points are in the low to mid 60s in the low levels, and then the mid levels they're only in the 40s. And then we have much drier air up above 10,000 feet. And the appearance of a little bit of a subsidence inversion also above 10,000 feet. And with that north flow in the upper levels, that's helping to bring that smoke southward. Look at a couple of other soundings. We'll go up to Lincoln, Illinois. See how they're looking this evening. Don't have any data, so we'll go to Davenport. And there we go. So we know that they're going to be back in that cold air advection. The front, of course, is way out over the Appalachians, high pressure building in, and we see that reflected in the wind field. Very strong northwesterly flow from about 20 knots in the low levels all the way up to 50 knots, and even 60 up at about 18,000 feet. And then up at about 28,000 feet, we got a 105 knot jet across that area. Still a lot of residual moisture in the low levels. That's kind of surprising there. And that corresponds to dew points in the low 60s. We could almost certainly squeeze a few storms out of that if we had a good cold core low to give us a source of instability, but looks like a lot of that activity is capped. A lot of warm air in the mid-levels. A couple of other random soundings. Let's try Wallops Island, Virginia. So we know that they're going to be ahead of that front, probably in that tropical air mass. There's no sounding. Let's try eastern North Carolina there. Don't have that either. Yeah, it's a little bit too early for a lot of these soundings, so I'm just going to click around until I find one that comes up. Greensboro's not in. Roanoke. We're going to get Roanoke. A lot of these radio signs were just taken in the past hour, so we're just trying to find one that has all its data. Nope, don't have Dulles. We'll try one more. We'll try Brookhaven, New York. And there we go. There's Upton, New York. This is around the Long Island area. And looks like a little bit of inversion in the mid-levels. That's probably a little bit too far south to be a warm front. That's probably, let's see, it's rather cool there, and I wonder if that might be some outflow or something. Let me just take a quick look at the satellite, find out what kind of weather regime we have working in that area. Oh yeah, look at all that cloud. Brookhaven's going to be in this area here. Oh, you know what it is? Yeah, see that southeast flow right there? That's the marine layer coming inland. And then just some cirrus debris above that. So, yeah, that's what's going on right there. A very cool layer all the way up to 5,000 feet. You can see it there out of the southeast. Some rich moisture, but it is fairly cool there. And we're obviously not going to get any storms out of that. Okay, take a look at the satellite. There's that next wave coming in there from the west. We'll go and animate that. And we can see that the main impacts of that are going to be in Colorado and northern New Mexico there. One good storm going up right around the Raton area. And that's probably going to be the start of a small MCS rolling across the Oklahoma Panhandles and into the southern Kansas and Oklahoma area tonight. We'll take a closer look at that. First, we want to switch the region. Let me do that real quick. I want to get a look at those storms. Yeah, let's do that right there. Northern New Mexico. Very cloudy in that area. Lots of debris. It's kind of almost a monsoon pattern. And there's what it looked like earlier. So we can see storms going up around the Santa Fe area on the mountains. That's earlier today about noon, and those really get going. And finally, around 4 to 5 p.m., they start rolling out into the valleys. There's one around Trinidad up to the north, and they're on their way into the Great Plains, the high plains right there. So let's go ahead and look at the forecast. High-resolution rapid refresh already picking up on a lot of that thunderstorm activity there in northeast New Mexico. Okay, let's see. Kind of a quiet night here. Erica Baker, Coffeyville, Kansas. Fair skies, 84 over 64. We have Fun with Tech here. Patrick Motes watching Lane closely for Hawaii. Brett Dean, 75 with a shower in southern Jersey. Brian Lowe checking in from Delmarva. Brett Dean mentioning the easterly flow in the mid-Atlantic all the way from Carolinas to where he is. Shirley Keese joining us, saying hello, listening, eating dinner. Carl Berghoff made it in late, but he is here. And, yeah, let me check in on Hawaii real quick. Check out the eastern North Pacific. We may have to go to, yeah. Let's pull up the Central Pacific Hurricane Center. Yeah, there's Lane right there, south of the Big Island. I think that's going to be tracking to the south of Hawaii. Nope. No, this one is curving north. So, yeah, okay. Let's see what kind of category 4. Yeah, I've not been keeping up on the news here, so I'm just now finding out about this. So 135 knots there, sustained, 929 millibars. That's a pretty deep storm there, and let's check out the path on that. That's taking it up just south of Oahu. Honolulu is going to be right in that area there. So, yeah, this is definitely going to be a watching. We're going to check in on this on Thursday when we're back. And we'll pull all the data together and see what's happening out in that area. If we're looking at significant landfall, you know, we're going to do a webcast on Friday. Kind of break the schedule there. Okay, for tonight, yep, there's an MCS rolling across the Panhandles. And some of that will make it up into northern Oklahoma later tonight. And they'll start shutting down around dawn. And let's see what happens for tomorrow. Go to the upper levels there. There's the current chart right there. You can see a little bit of flattening in the field here. This is probably a trough moving right through this area here, approaching the ridge over Colorado and Wyoming. So out ahead of that trough, there's those showers there, and those will end up in eastern Kansas and Missouri tomorrow. So right in that area there. Okay, the main trough, it's going to stick up to the north there in Wyoming and Montana. That'll come out around Thursday and Friday. So we're going to expect the surface fronts to be something like that. Typically downstream from the trough and upstream from the ridge. In other words, in here, that tends to be the most active area for weather. And the jet lies about right there. So yeah, the surface systems would look like that. This is the baroclinic zone right there over northern Iowa for Friday or Thursday night. So it looks to be active there in the western Midwest for Thursday and Friday. So anyway, that'll move into the Great Lakes region for Friday and into Saturday. And looks like another carbon copy system coming in from the west there. And down in Texas and Oklahoma, Louisiana, looks like we're going to be under that subtropical high. Okay, we'll take a look at precipitable water, and this will give us an idea of any significant changes coming up. So here you see the impact of all that dry air coming south. There's that high, looking at the thin black lines. That outlines the high right in that area. So that's pushing a lot of dry air into Oklahoma and Arkansas, North Texas. However, down to the south, this is going to be the return flow area. And let's see, that's going to start up around Saturday, so going into the weekend. Looks like we're going to see the moisture coming into Texas right there. The thin black line showing very deep southerly flow coming all the way up the Great Plains. So I would expect to see precip chances going up starting early next week down in the southern U.S. And starting to see the 2-inch amounts coming up into the western Gulf region right there. New system up there in the central Great Plains about midweek. There it is right there. And let's see what happens with that. Yeah, of course it's going to move up into Minnesota and Iowa. And then as we get later into this chart sequence, we see what looks like maybe a tropical cyclone coming into the Gulf. This is around September 2nd. This is a long ways off. But you can see that moving into Texas and Louisiana there. So let's see where that came from. We'll go out to our Caribbean sector, and there we go. So starting at around the 2nd, you can see the system right there. And if we back that up, we can see the origin. So 31st looks like it's crossing around Cuba. And then we go back to the 30th and 29th. We see it around Dominica. And then Puerto Rico around the 29th. So what I'm trying to do is try to find an origin of where this system was being generated so we can watch for it on tomorrow's run and Thursday's run. So let's see, we got to go a little bit further east. And pivotal weather doesn't have a good Atlantic sector, so I'm just kind of looking around to find out where that is. Okay, 29th, this is where it's going through Puerto Rico. So if we backtrack, this probably came off of Africa around the 23rd to 24th. So it's probably this system right there. So you can kind of see how much uncertainty there is in the model run, because this wave that we're talking about is somewhere over Central Africa right now. So it's very unlikely that we're handling that with any large degree of accuracy. So it's just going to be kind of a waiting game for the next 5 to 10 days to wait for the models to converge on a solution there. But we will keep an eye there on Western Africa and the southern North Atlantic region, and see if we are looking for a system in the Gulf maybe around the first week of September. All right. And I think that's about all I got for tonight. Appreciate you all joining. And let me get the music. Yeah, there's the outro music. And we're good. Okay, well, time to get some dinner and wind down, and hope you all have a good evening. Take care, and we will see you on Thursday. Bye-bye.